So the next part here is one of these must be true. And really, the VA's lying here a little bit. They should have said one of three of these must be true, but they say two, but then they throw in a third. So I want to make it clear that there are three potential qualifiers for TDIU, and it has to do with your service-connected disabilities, okay? One way is you have at least one service-connected disability that's rated at 60%. So you can just have one condition that's 60% and that's it. Or you can have whatever, 5 10s and a 60%. But one of your conditions must be 60% rated. That will open the doorway to TDIU. The next is you can have two or more service-connected disabilities with at least one of them rated at 40% disabling with a combined rating of 70%. So it's a lot to digest in that sense. You have to be at least a 70% rated veteran, and one of your conditions must be at least 40%. So that's why they say the two or more, because they're saying one of them must be 40%, which means that you would have two at least to make it to the 70% mark. So you have to at least be 70% with one rating at 40%. Well, what if you have the third situation here? You have a bunch of 30% ratings, right? And some 10s, and you're not at 100%, but those conditions are really jacking you up, right? Well, it says here, in certain cases, for example, if you need to be in the hospital often, you may qualify at a lower disability rating. So they're not binding you to the one rating at 60 or one rating at 40 with an overall at 70. They're opening it up to have a little bit of wiggle room in there depending on your specific situation. So if you truly can't work because of your service-connected condition, because of whatever, spell that out, work with an accredited rep to get that filed. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on those different tracks and the fact that you can earn income while you're on this TDIU. Randy.
Well, the VA never makes things crystal clear, do they? They do have these different criteria that you need to meet, and I think that most people, if you are considering IU, would probably be in one of those first two buckets, right? The 60% or the combined 70%. I can understand that. The third is kind of a catch-all, but I want to read something that comes from the VA's website here that I think kind of ties all this together. IU is for individuals that cannot be substantially and gainfully employed. So what does that mean? Substantial gainful employment is simply full-time employment that provides a wage greater than the poverty level. So there's two things there, guys: full-time and above the poverty level. Now, the latter is a fairly low bar. If you take a look at some of the data that's out there, making more than the poverty level is a pretty low bar. But full-time can be the issue. If you're experiencing a condition that prevents you from being in, let's say, an office chair doing typing for 40 hours a week, and you can't hit that full-time mark, then that is not substantial and gainful employment. You are less than full-time. So keep that in mind, guys, as you are exploring this benefit that may be applicable to you. So I just wanted to put that out there. Chris, I'm going to let you chime in here and hear what you have to say.
Yeah, guys, this kind of reminds me of IRS regulations, right? And whenever you get to a different IRS agent, there is interpretation required, and that interpretation can be so different depending upon who you speak to. I would assume that there's, I'm actually appreciative of some wiggle room because not every individual person's situation is the same, but then that does lead to more ambiguity and probably a little bit less getting caught in the circle of frustration. Can either of you guys shed a little bit of light on my thoughts right there?
Yeah, there is a lot of ambiguity in this, and it can be frustrating. Let me give you an example here, Chris, and I'm going to read it just straight from the VA's website and tell you why I think that this is, probably a bit, ambiguous for a lot of veterans out there. Quote, for instance, if a veteran has been trained to drive a truck but can't work because of a service-connected back or stomach condition, he or she may qualify for IU, end quote. So the implication there is that you have been trained for a specific profession. In this case, that the VA themselves use is driving a truck. Let's say that's CDL, and you need to be out on the road, moving a lot of iron down the freeway, and you just can't do it because your back is screwed up. Well, there could be the argument that, well, why don't you get a job that doesn't require you to drive? Do something else. But what they're saying here is you've been trained to drive a truck. That is your profession of choice. You can't do it because of what happened to you in the military. You may qualify for IU. So I don't want our viewers to lose sight of that. I don't think what the VA is saying here, and again, ambiguity, is you can't get any job. It's just, what the example that they're using is within your trained, chosen career, you can't perform. Something happened. It got you to, 60% or 70% with two, and you just can't do it. And there's, I think, probably quite a few people out there that fall into that bucket. So don't lose sight of that. It's not any job out there that gets you to substantial and gainful employment, so full-time and above the poverty level. It appears from their example that they're using here that they're going to take into consideration your chosen profession and how that aligns with the injuries or service-connected disabilities that you experienced while you were on active duty.